Yeah, I don't know if you know anything about Nova Legends, but during the lockdown, we all had abundance of spare time that we didn't have in the past. Commuting and everything was so available that we spent more time on the internet. And we created this Facebook group of former Northern Virginia basketball players, coaches, officials, and it's been incredible the response that we've gotten. People just are really into the old games and the old rivalries,
Mhm.
narrow wins, big victories and stuff. But we're also been talking to some of the stars of the area, and I mean, you've done it about as much as anybody in terms of what you've accomplished in pro basketball. So we thought it'd be great, if we can get you on here. So I'm glad you decided to do it.
Yeah, of course. As soon as I saw it, I was like, absolutely. It took me a little bit of time to figure out when was a good time, but I'm definitely happy to be on here for sure.
Are you in Connecticut right now?
I am.
Okay.
We're actually home. We came off of like a West Coast trip. We're traveling a bit. Now we're going to be in Connecticut for like 2 weeks.
Oh, that's kind of rare
Yeah,
in your business, right? To be home for 2 weeks.
it is. But we played a whole bunch of games on the front end. So next week we'll actually have a full week with no games, which while that's rare, I don't like it. We get some rest, but then that means more practice and
Yeah.
everyone would rather play games.
Yeah. The practices, they try to tone down the work so you're fresh for the games.
Yeah, for that's usually how it works. Next week we'll be able to kind of dial it up a bit maybe, but yeah, we practices are short, focused, scout based. So
Oh, okay. Well, why don't we start from the beginning? Because I refereed basketball for many years. I actually played at Robinson. My sister Julie, who
okay,
I
yeah.
played after her. I was her younger brother. She was a star of the household. I was just an average player, but I did play. I did play for Robinson, and then I coached. I went to UVA. I know that you Dukies don't even acknowledge that we exist,
I do.
okay.
That was my second school, Duke and
Okay.
UVA.
Oh, you
Yeah.
made the wrong decision. Um, uh, but after school, I went to a graduate school as well. There, I came back to Northern Virginia, and I officiated for many years. And I think I probably stopped officiating just about the time you were playing. So
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to see like your heyday and stuff,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately. So I'm excited just to hear more about it.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited. The questions are going to be good ones. I'm excited.
Oh, okay, well, great. So, where did you grow up? Did you always live in like the Fairfax, Oakton area?
Not always. So I grew up in the city of Falls Church. I want to say I moved right before seventh grade, maybe. Then I moved to Fairfax, right near the Oakton area, so on that Fairfax Vienna border. So yeah, I started at like a City of Falls Church schooling. Then I went to the Langley School for seventh and eighth grade. That's like in McLean near Tyson's, and then yeah, I started at Holy Cross first in the WCAC, and then I transferred on my birthday to Oakton. Didn't want to make that commute. The all-girl Catholic wasn't uh, didn't fit me, and I just kind of wanted to be home. So
It's
went to Oakton.
interesting that most of the people go from public schools to end up going to private because they get really good in basketball or whatever. You went
Mhm.
the other way around. You went from private school to public school.
Yeah, kind of the way that things are going with me for basketball, I didn't need to be, in that, the WCAC was super competitive. Like you said, people were going to play basketball so they could, be in that market, compete, get exposure. I didn't quite need that. I was able to get all of my exposure through AAU basketball. So just, playing at public school was good for me. And honestly, at that time public school was extremely competitive. Like you had some great players that ended up going Division 1 that were playing in both my conference and like just in that region, so it worked out.
Yeah. So, when did you start playing basketball?
I started playing when I was 9 years old at James Lee Community Center. My parents, they had, so my dad's from DC, my mom's from Virginia, but when they first like moved in together, they lived in the James Lee apartments in that area. So that was like kind of where they were familiar with. My mom went to high school with a lot of the, parents in that area. So I started at that community center. My brother was playing football there and basketball. So I naturally was like the one running around the field, not paying attention or like going to the gym for all these games. And then I don't know, just one day I was like, like girls can play basketball. Like, why am I not playing basketball, daddy? Like, where are the teams for me? So my brother's basketball coach actually started the first girls team that I played for.
Oh, was that
So
James Lee?
James Lee with Coach Fox, Mike Fox.
Oh, okay, yeah, James Lee has such a great tradition of great players. I remember when I was a kid, I played against James Lee at the time. I played against Gus Hill, who ended up playing at East Carolina. Flint Hill played. Then I played against Bobby Dobson, who's coaching at Washington Lee. But they were awesome. And the year before, they had Tommy Amaker. Those guys were James Lee. So they've been great for so many years. So many great, like Coach Kitchens and all those guys.
Yep.
Yeah,
Good history there.
Did your parents play basketball?
They didn't. My dad played football in high school, and that was it. My mom did not play. I mean, she played basketball, but I don't think you could count it as playing basketball. So no, my parents didn't play.
Were you always tall? So like, I mean, you're 5'9" now, which is not tall for the WNBA, but but 5'9" in high school, that's you could be a small forward, a power forward at 5'9" sometimes. Were you tall when you were young?
I would say like I grew before everyone. I want to say maybe close to 5'9" by 10. I was probably around like 5'7" when I was 10 years old, I feel like. So I grew early. So I was taller when I was younger. And I even have like some memories of being frustrated because I was a post player and I'm like, these aren't my skill sets. Like I'm uncomfortable with my back to the basket, all these things. But I was the tallest person on so many of my younger teams that's just kind of how it worked out. But then I leveled off. So by middle school, I was kind of done growing. I got to 5'9" and just plateaued. Unfortunately, I wish I was like 6'4".
Yeah, we all do. So when you stopped growing, did you have to develop guard skills? Did you get put in the post at a young age?
I didn't so naturally. I feel like that I was just a road runner. I love defense. I loved playing in the open court, and I think that came with guard skills. Like my innate position was to be a guard. My dad always worked on my ball handling, always worked with me as a guard. So that was my comfort. So when I got put in the post, I was always uncomfortable. I still worked on like basic post moves. Like I could do a drop step if I have to, but no, I was always pretty much able to play a guard. Even when I was a post on some of those teams, I'd get a rebound and just push the break and like go get a layup, So yeah, I've always had a guard skill set.
You're kind of like another Duke player, Grant Hill. Just even though you were tall, you always get the ball and go coast to coast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have a role model in particular when you were young? There's someone that you watch play, you're like, I want to play like that person?
I was a fan of Kara Lawson, obviously, just her coming out of the area, being someone that, was local, that I could be like, oh my God, like those are footsteps like I can follow and I want to be like her. And then when I became like a big Duke fan, I obviously watched the Elena Beards. Lindsey Harding was like a big reason why I chose to go to Duke, just kind of seeing a lot of myself in her and being able to see my future and success at Duke in that role. And Cynthia Cooper was that Houston Comets like dynasty was my favorite WNBA team to watch. So those are like my role models and inspirations growing up for basketball.
That's great. So you're a real fan of the WNBA. So you grew up with it. Whereas a lot of people, like in my generation, it took a while. I mean, girls basketball wasn't even taken seriously. When my sister played, I mean, the NCAA just started overseeing girls basketball. Before it was AIAW or something like that. And at Robinson, I think the first girls state champion ever was 1976, and Robinson won it in 77. So we had this great tradition, but girls basketball wasn't even a serious thing. And those first couple generations, it's great that you grew up being able to have female role models in basketball.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely grew up with the WNBA being something to like aspire to, and the excitement around it since it was early. Like, the league was really developing and taking off during the time that I was becoming more serious about basketball. So, we knew it was an option. Like, okay, we're going to be able to aspire to play in the WNBA. But at the same time, the exposure of it was, you had to have tickets and like go to games. You weren't going to see it on TV. So because of that, I still watched college basketball more because I was able to see it on TV more. I would say it was still more, college basketball felt more attractive. Like I felt myself wanting to go to Duke and talk about Duke and, wanting to visit and go to those games or Maryland games, because that was another good university in the area, more than I would talk about going to WNBA games. But I did go to WNBA All-Star. I don't even remember what year this was, but it was at the MCI Center, and it's not the MCI Center anymore. Yeah. So it was a long time ago. But yeah, it definitely was something that I knew I could do, had that option, which is cool.
Were you a fan of Coach Krzyzewski and the boys team as well, or was most of the girls team you followed?
I was a fan of men's basketball at Duke as well. My parents, well, my dad and my brother, they're big sports people. So they like Georgetown, but they also like Duke. So we would watch them all the time. And part of my official visit, like I got to meet Coach K and JJ Redick, like walk me around like Cameron. And, that was part of the experience because they knew that I was a fan of men's basketball too.
Yeah. JJ Redick is one of these guys where I think you were just getting ready to start high school basketball, but that he was one of the guys that stayed in a public school. He could have gone anywhere. He could have gone to Oak Hill Academy and stuff. And he stayed at his little school, Cave Spring. And to state tournament, they played against Hayfield, which our boys hadn't won a state title from Northern Virginia in like 20 years. But his Hayfield team was awesome. JJ Redick put together the greatest display of shooting I'd ever seen in a high school game. I mean, he shot he must have had 11, 12 3-pointers, but they were like 4-pointers. I mean, they were like 35 foot. I mean,
yeah. He was fun to watch for sure. Like, I'm still a fan of him. I just think he's a cool guy. So.
Yeah, apparently he's got a great podcast. So, so you were saying you're playing for James Lee for travel or county, whatever we called it back then. But who'd you play AAU with?
I played AAU with the Fairfax Stars. I can't really remember kind of like how. I think they were just the first organization that like approached my dad. We had some connections through the county, like there were players that were already doing both, and just through word of mouth, that relationship, that connection was made. And then that was the only organization I played for. I see it common now. There's like so many AAU teams, like, there's one starting up every summer, so loyalty is a big thing for me. I'm kind of like that in everything that I do. I stuck with Fairfax Stars the whole time, got to Oakton. I was like, Priest is my man. Even when there were opportunities to, maybe go to some other schools, no, I'm staying at Oakton. Same thing with like Duke. I love Duke so much. I didn't even play for the coach that recruited me. She ended up leaving, but I'm like, I'm with Duke. I'm staying here. So That's kind of consistent in my career. So, like once I dedicate myself, I'm in it to win it.
Well, that's a great trait. I'm sure it contributed to your success as well. Because when you're a loyal person, you engender loyalty as well, which inspires people around you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So was Priester your coach at Fairfax Stars, or was it somebody else?
It was somebody else. So, and that's the kind of thing. So Priester was like with the Vogue's organization. So they were kind of like, I guess you could even say like rival organizations in the area. And that's the thing that I kind of really appreciate him for, because there was never any pressure from Priester for me to, move to the Vogues. We have a super, super good relationship. I have the best relationship with Priester of any coach that I've played for, and I don't know, I just feel like he's like family for us. And I had the same relationship with my AAU coach. So it was like, at times I would feel uncomfortable a little bit just as a kid, kind of like, I love this coach and I love this coach, but I would kind of just compartmentalize and show them both how much I appreciated them. But I never felt that pressure to, pick a side.
Well, would you say that you guys moved into the Oakton area with the idea that you may play for Priester in Oakton, or it just happened to work out that way?
It just happened to work out that way. Like the only research we had done was which school was in the area. So I knew that I would go to Oakton, but we hadn't like looked up who was the coach or anything like that. The funny thing about my parents is, as much as they push and support my basketball dreams, like education is the biggest thing. I think that's even why my top two schools were UVA and Duke, is it was important for me and for my family that I got a good education. So similar with Oakton, it wasn't really about basketball. We didn't care who the coach would be. We just got lucky that it was someone as amazing as Coach Priester.
Yeah, so it's funny because I know Coach Priester from refereeing, and I've gotten to know him better through this group. He's really a nice guy, but as a ref, he's not like the warm fuzzy guy. Like he doesn't. I mean, I don't think I ever had any kind of interaction with him besides, good call, bad call. I mean,
Yeah. No, and he's completely, like, once you get to know him, he's completely different. He's super warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, I found that out. He's a really nice guy, but again, you would never know. So your freshman year, did you hit the ground running? Because I know you guys went to the state tournament. So did you come in, start right away, lead and score right away? What happened your freshman year?
It was a little bit of a process just because we had a well-established group of upperclassmen, and I'm the type of person, I am a team player. I want everyone to feel good, to feel valued. I've always been like that. So coming in, not knowing anybody in the school, period, let alone anyone on the team, I was uncomfortable at first because I knew how good I was, but I didn't want to step on any toes. I wanted everyone to know that, like, I don't think I'm better than anybody, but I want to do my thing here. Like, I want to be able to play. I want to, be able to win and help everybody win. So it was uncomfortable for a little bit, but pretty quickly, I was able to kind of establish myself and be part of the team and start and play a lot and be productive.
Did you play point right away, or did you play multiple positions, or?
I would say multiple positions. There was a point guard there, a good one, Samara Stephen Dow. She was, I think, a two-sport athlete. She played soccer as well, and she was good. So it was not, a situation where I needed to be the point guard. Honestly, growing up, I was pretty much like positionless from that standpoint of like the guards. I kind of just went with the flow. Sometimes I'd be ball dominant. I'd be bringing it up all the time and the ball was in my hands. Other times I'd be off the ball, like running the offense like everyone else, and the ball would end in my hands. So I didn't feel like specifically pigeonholed to the point guard. Honestly, my 4 years at Oakton.
So did you guys win state your freshman year?
We didn't win. We didn't win. I didn't win state in my high school career at all. I made it to the semifinal, I want to say twice. Lost to, I think, Princess Anne once and Monica Wright. And where did she go? What was her school?
Forest Park?
Yeah, and Forest Park once. So
Yeah.
Didn't quite get a state championship, but I think won 2 regionals or 1 regional. I can't remember. I'm getting old. That's bad.
Yeah, you are, huh? So I talked to the Coyer twins. I don't know if you remember them. They're younger than you, but they played at
Yes,
Oakton.
of course. Yeah.
And when I asked them the question about who was your role model idol, you were their role model idol. And one of the things it was very nice. And one of the things that they said about you was their father, when they would come watch you play, you always had such a great attitude on the court, disposition. You didn't let things rattle you. You didn't get mad at things that weren't important. And he wanted them to have that same attitude when they played.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And that, honestly, I think I like that people notice that, because it's something that doesn't come easy. Like, internally, these things are going on through my head, but I can't remember who told me or taught me or like emphasized it to me when I was younger. It was definitely a coach, though, about composure and how important it is, especially when you're a leader on a team, because if I show it that I'm rattled or that my energy is bad, it just kind of trickles and affects everyone else. So I kind of try to have that like next play mentality, but it is really important to me, and I work at it, that I don't get too high or too low. I'm just, consistent with my demeanor and my energy all the time. That's in practice too, though. So
were you a regular student in terms of you got along with people just with the football games, or were you really driven to always focus on the books and basketball when you were at Oakton?
I'm a social person, so I like to, go to events. I went to the homecomings. I went to football games every now and then. I wasn't a big partier. I would say that was the thing that kind of, separated me from a lot of people, is that my focus with basketball was I didn't want to ever put myself in a situation to compromise that. So, you know, a lot of my friends were like family, like cousins, or people that I played AAU basketball with, or from when I first started at James Lee. But I feel like people got to know me at Oakton just through basketball. Like the energy that I brought to the school, looking back on it kind of feels unreal actually, but that's how I was able to, you know, develop those relationships. People enjoyed coming to the games. They enjoyed knowing when the games were. They would travel to other schools to come to the games. And then those conversations would just happen, starting with basketball and then kind of go into some other things, but didn't party. I was a lacrosse manager.
Really?
So
That's cool.
yeah, for 2 years. So my only state championship is actually from lacrosse, and I got a ring, and I'm extremely proud of it. And I always talk about that. Yeah, Coach Counts. I don't even know if she's still the lacrosse coach at Oakton, but she's amazing. That experience was cool for me, just to not be a basketball player, to, you know, actually be a part of a team, but a team where my production wasn't, you know, necessary for success, was actually kind of cool for me.
Did you have basketball teammates on the lacrosse team?
I did.
Right. So you were
Yeah.
just, yeah. Well, that's cool. You never wanted to try it yourself?
I wanted to try, but it became a thing always with like the health, you know, staying healthy for basketball. I have played basketball year round since I started. So it was like, you know, AAU, like I said, was extremely important for my exposure. So if I would have played lacrosse, it's a spring sport. So it's right along when those tryouts for AAU would start and all these other things. And I think I feel like I played AAU up until I was 16, maybe, or something like that, 16, something so.
Yeah. So did you, you know, one thing I've talked to a lot of the great athletes about is even the ones that went very far, and you went about as far as you can. You've been to Turkey and Russia. You can't go much further than that. But the folks, those high school losses, the fact that you didn't win a state championship, is that something that bothered you, or is that something because you accomplished so much more? You won the ACC at Duke a few times, and you know you got to the Final Four in basketball. And you went to the WNBA. Did you forget about those, or did some of those losses stick with you?
I didn't forget about them. I feel like they didn't affect me as far as like what I thought about myself as a player, competitor, as a winner, as a, you know, like my talent level. They didn't affect me in that sense. It's just more so you set goals for yourself, just like in anything you do in life. And you know, you would want to achieve the highest goal, and that's always winning a championship. You know, that's the best that you can do. So it's disappointing that you fall short and you can't go back. Like I can never go back to high school and repeat those years and try to win a state championship. So they're more so just disappointing. But the one game that sticks with me is an Edison loss in a regional final. That I still remember, you know, just the emotions of that game. I can't remember play for play, but I remember that.
Edison had a really top player on that team. What was her name?
Dorina
Yeah,
Campbell.
yeah,
she played at
that's right.
UCLA. Yeah, she played at UCLA. I don't know if she's playing anymore, but she was good.
Were you guys ever teammates, like AAU teammates?
We were.
Right. Okay.
We were.
Yeah,
we played on the Fairfax Stars together. I can't remember how many years, but I think multiple seasons, like 2. Yeah.
So my guess is you probably signed with Duke pretty early in your high school career. Or when did you sign with Duke?
I actually did. I signed. I mean, I verbaled closer to signing the national letter of intent. So it's not, you know, how some people are like verbaling in 8th grade or something like that. I waited my whole process out. I didn't sign with Duke till my official visit. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
And
So
what was
I
it
really
about?
had an experience. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just going to say, what was it about Duke? I know they had a coaching change. I always pronounce the previous coach's name wrong, but she had recruited you, and then
Yes.
she ended up leaving.
Yeah. So Gail Gestincourt.
Guessing.
Yeah. She recruited me. Had a pretty good relationship with her. Even now, I still do. She, through Facebook, like she keeps up with everything that I'm doing and reaches out here and there. But I think that's the thing. I was sold on Duke just as a university for what the relationships and the network that I could build for my future. So it wasn't just about basketball. No matter who was the coach there, I was going to be playing at the highest level that you can play at, and at the collegiate level. You know, I was going to a good university that had a rich, successful basketball history. They hadn't won a national championship, and that was attractive to me. Like, I want to be part of bringing the first national championship to Duke. Didn't get that, but you know, that's part of why I chose to go there. Like I said, Maryland was a school that was in the area, so a lot of the camps or team camps, AAU tournaments, they were at Maryland, and I was able to be on campus all the time. I was able to go to their games during the season, but I wanted to be a little further away from home, and they had won that national championship against Duke. So, you know, I just wanted to be part of something, some special, something that hadn't been done before. And once I went on my official visit, if they get you on campus, it's pretty hard for you to say no to going there. It has a huge name, but it's the most intimate campus that you can be on. Everybody knows everyone. The energy of the school revolves around basketball, which, you know, as a young athlete, that's, you know, that's attention that you know, it's exciting. It makes you want to play, it makes you want to be part of it. And at the same time, it's extremely competitive academically. And that was important to me as well. So
I took an AAU team down to Danville, Virginia, which is not too far from Durham and Raleigh and stuff. So we had some time. So I took them over to see UNC and Duke just to walk around and show them. And I think they were underwhelmed by UNC. I mean, you hear so much about it. It's a great place, great basketball teams, Dean Dome and stuff. But the campus, it's just not magisterial, but it's decent. And then I took them to Durham, and they're walking around like these buildings, and it's just like it's almost overwhelming how impressive it is. I remember how the kids, their eyes were kind of bulged out looking at it.
Yeah, the architecture is nice, and it's almost like, I don't know, like a castle. I don't know what you call that type of architecture, but when you go to UNC, it's colonial, like that for sure. You know, it's spaced out, it's bigger. But that Duke just seems like you live in Hogwarts, like a little like castle community. And I just feel like you get the energy of the students. Everyone's like either outside studying, they spend a lot of time outdoors. It's 6,000 undergrads. So wherever you are in your dorm, you're gonna have like a close connection to those people that you see all the time. And I don't know, it's just it really is a great place. I'm excited. Kara Lawson she's now the head coach at Duke, which talk about, you know, how cool that is. Someone that I said was an inspiration to me growing up is now the head coach at the university I went to, and is doing a great job at bringing alumni back in. I think for a short time there, we all kind of got spread out, got going in our different lives and things that were going on. And she's put a huge emphasis on just making us a part of the experience again. It helps with recruiting, and it helps for us too. You know, we want to be around, we want to be a resource for these young athletes, and we just want to feel welcome. So she's doing a good job with that.
It's kind of hard to underestimate the power you have in such a network of Duke grads that are doing incredible things. I mean, you got to harness that power. So it's a smart move on her part, and I think it's also enjoyable as well to reconnect with all the folks she has so much in common with.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you were at Oakton, because I made a similar move. I went from Fairfax to Charlottesville, and you went from Oakton to Durham. Now, things probably changed because I was in early 80s. Charlottesville felt like a Southern town, and I was not used to that. Did Durham, do you feel like a Southern town when you got there? Or in some ways you might have been insulated from that because you were an athlete?
I think parts of it definitely made it feel like a Southern town. The accents, the little drawl you get. And that's the thing, like, because Durham has so many universities there, I mean, not specifically Durham. Durham has Duke and UNC, but that triangle, I mean, Duke and NCCU, but that triangle area obviously has UNC, NC State, and we, I guess, kind of take Wake Forest, even though they're a little bit down. So you have all these people coming from different areas of the South. So there's the North Carolina Southern accent, and then that in itself has various accents. And then there's people from other, states in the South that you kind of hear that drawl. And for me, that was the first time really experiencing hearing that. I don't think people from the Northern Virginia area have much of an accent at all. Like, people are just kind of like, where are you from? We can't tell. So that was new for me. Some of the foods that were like popular were more like Southern dishes, or a lot barbecue is a big thing
Okay, yeah.
in North Carolina. So there were some like fast food place or local places that were popular, that chains that I didn't have back at home. So I was like, okay, these are more like Southern comfort things. Um, but again, like I said, for the most part, that triangle area being full of so many schools, you just kind of get caught up in the college life. Like even when we would go hang out with like other players from other teams because we were friends from home, or we played AAU together, there was a lot of crossing paths, but we all were living in the sports world. We all had similar lifestyles, we all had similar schedules. So we didn't quite have like a Southern experience.
Hmm, yeah, yeah, I can see that. So you think was your career much different because McCallie was your coach? How did she affect your game, and did you think things worked out the same regardless?
Um, I think so. I mean, I can only speak on what my actual experience was.
Mhm.
You never know if things could have been different with Coach G. They could have been better, they could have been worse. You really don't
Yeah.
know. But I will say that, Coach B gave me a lot of freedom to just develop as my raw talent as a player. I was able to kind of be confident. The strengths that I had, I was able to, really embrace those, become a leader, become a primary option on the team, coming in as a freshman when there's, upperclassmen who are well established, who are, All American candidates. They're great. You have to find out where you fit in. You work your way into a role, and I had the opportunity to do that under Coach B. She was a huge. I guess the mental aspect of the game was a big part of, what she did. We watched video a lot. You'd have meetings with her a lot, just about, where you are in your headspace, and, how you can be more successful in that sense, starting with like thinking the game. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it could have been different. I feel like I had a good college experience. I wanted to win more. I think that's the only thing. And when you reflect, that's individually performing better at different moments, but also just as a team. Things, you fall short for multiple reasons. You win together, you lose together, and that's the only thing I just wish is I wanted to make it to a Final Four really bad in the NCAA tournament, but um, I was still able to be drafted in the first round. My junior year was my best production wise on the court, being efficient. That was my best season. And I think that's probably the season that set me up to have a future in the WNBA.
Did you play point right away at your freshman year?
I did. And that's
Mhm.
what, when I was speaking earlier about when I was younger and not being pigeonholed into any specific guard position, it kind of, I think once I went to USA basketball, for the like U18 going into college, I went to a world championship. I think that's when I started to be like labeled as a point guard. I think based off of my size and, just things like that, there was more opportunity for success at that position. And then I just fell in love with it. I love assists. I love getting the team involved. I love being a leader vocally on offense and defense. So I think a lot of my characteristics just made me, attractive at that
Mm.
point guard position. And then I just fell in love with it. I embraced it. It's, definitely the position that I'm labeled at now, but it was a process of, learning. I mean, it's the hardest position you can play on the court. It
Mhm.
comes with a lot mentally, and just relationships, and on the court and off the court, being able to keep your teammates happy and make the right decisions of, when to score, when to pass, when to be aggressive, when to, you manage everything. You're the coach on the
Mm.
floor. And I like that. I embrace that role and those challenges.
Do you feel like playing at Oakton in Virginia, where girls basketball is very strong, and I'm sure you had a great AAU program as well, Fairfax Stars? Do you feel like the ACC? It was. It's not going to be an easy transition, but it was something that you hit the ground, you're ready to go.
Yeah, it was a smooth transition for sure. I feel like the way the style of basketball AAU, the ACC was playing at the time was, right up my alley. It was really consistent to what I did. It was a defensive, fast-paced, transition-based conference, and it's changed a lot now. But that fit the style of basketball that I wanted to play. I like being in the open court, and that's something we did under Coach P. Is we pressed a lot, and that was kind of our defense was the start of our offense, and that was fun.
How would you describe it now that it's changed?
I don't know. It's hard for me to watch college as much as when I first got out, I would stay up late and, try to watch those, but I play overseas every season in the off season. So, staying up till 7 p.m. is like, like 4 a.m. over there, and then having practices and games, it got harder. So I've not seen, I watched some NCAA games, but not specific to just the ACC. So I haven't seen it in a few years.
Right. Okay. So I know that you were talking about you never made a Final Four. I actually thought you did, but I guess you would know that. But
Two Elite Eights.
Yeah. Okay. Two Elite Eights. One more step. But your junior and senior year, you did win the ACC, and the regular season and tournament. Was that a big accomplishment, or were you guys favored and that really was like something you were supposed to do?
It was a big accomplishment. I mean, I think that's hard to do in consecutive seasons, especially, like I said, there's so many competitive schools at that time. You had Maryland, who was, great at recruiting, had a great, always had a great team. You had UNC, great at recruiting. You had, just like NC State would have, top Georgia Tech. There was just so many teams that had talented players who were on like All-American watch lists and, did a great job at recruiting as well, that it was always competitive. I just think we had a confidence about us, and we were favored to win, but it wasn't easy. Like it was not easy, especially when usually, Maryland and UNC are like rivals for us. UNC for sure is the rival, but Maryland became one after that national championship game. So it's like you're playing these teams in the regular season, and you also have to beat them in the tournament to even win the ACC tournament. So it's hard to play teams that many times and keep winning. So it was challenging, but it was fun, and it was always in Greensboro, and my family could come down. So I remember those ACC tournaments clearly.
And those Elite Eight losses, are those games that you think about? And I'm sure, did you think you had chances to go to the Final Four in those years?
I think we did. The Texas A&M one, I believe that was my junior year. That one felt worse. Was it my junior year? I can't remember. That one felt worse. Like, and that might have even been Sweet 16. But that's one that stands out the most. Was it Texas A&M? Yeah. I think we played it in Oklahoma City. And it just was a bad game. One of those games start to finish feels bad. Never found a rhythm, just terrible. And then Baylor was one we played in Memphis. And we could, it was a close game. We got down to the end. They had Brittany Griner, so, Odyssey Sims, I believe. So it was a tough game. We knew it would be a challenging game, but we also thought okay, it was going, it was a good game. We had a chance to pull it off, but they stick with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting ready to, obviously you've always had a dream of playing pro basketball. And I think when you think about the WNBA, there's not that many jobs. There's 12 teams. You figure there's 12 to 15 players on each team. And, every year they don't have tons of turnover. So, you might, all but 2 or 3 might be welcome back. So, not a lot of jobs opened up. So your senior year at Duke, what'd you think about your prospects, and what was the process? I'm sure this is like the boys game. You get an agent and you talk about the next step.
Yep. You get an agent. The agent I signed with, he's based out of Gaithersburg. So he actually was familiar with me from when I was a kid. So was able to develop a good relationship there, felt good about, he's a well-established agent, Boris Lelchitsky. He has, a lot of clients, a lot of good clients, even like coaches. So he has a really good history for being able to place athletes and get them, the best jobs on the best teams in the world. So that was important to me. And, just that relationship there, that he actually knew me. And so you sign with an agent, you get ready, whether you're invited to the draft or not. I'm not sure how they do that anymore with how, COVID and things have been virtual or whatever, but they would invite 20 or 21 people to the draft. So I got that letter of invite. And usually if you get that, that means you're expected to, go pretty high in the draft, either for sure first round or early second. And yeah, I started doing workouts. I actually worked out with like Chris Carrawell, who was an assistant coach for the Duke men's basketball team, and had a good relationship with him. So it's funny because I did my first few workouts with Kyrie. Like we were like, yeah, it was kind of cool. So
That's great. Well, I would think the agent is probably maybe even more important in women's basketball, because they also have to look for jobs overseas at the same time. Where in men's basketball, I'm sure if you get into the NBA, you got a job for at least a couple of years. Maybe you look for endorsements and things like that. Well, that's going to be a factor, endorsements. But I mean, looking at your career, you're talking to teams in Poland and Russia and Turkey. I mean, it's not a job where it's ever really quiet.
Right. You really go into the next thing. Like, so I signed to play, once the draft happened, I was drafted to Seattle, traded right away to DC, which was just an opportunity for me to be able to start at home, which is what I wanted. So I did 2 years in DC, but as soon as I got there, I want to say like a month or 2 months in, my agent was talking to me about signing for overseas. So I signed those contracts while I'm playing in the W. And then, once you sign a contract in the W, it's kind of for a length of time. So I knew once I finished that overseas season, I'd be going back to the same team, so it's kind of just this cycle you get used to. And I will say that an agent is obviously important for, placing you in jobs to play, but the endorsement sponsorship part of it is a huge part of it, but there's an incredible deficit for women. When you are the face of the team, that 1%, the Diana Taurasi's, Brianna Stewart's, Elena Deladon's, these athletes, they get thrown all the sponsorship and endorsements. And then there's this whole market of players that just kind of have to fight, scratch and claw to even be, noticed or recognized. So it's hard for women's athletes to really get the endorsements and sponsorships that we deserve. I think that there's a huge emphasis being placed on that right now. And younger players are learning to market themselves through social media earlier. Like you have, 13, 14, 15-year-olds on Instagram being able to brand themselves earlier, which is what I'm happy to see them, learn to do, because it's important. It's a huge part of financially being a professional athlete if you can secure those partnerships.
So I know the league is trying to work on salaries. I think over the last couple of years it's gotten better. I think it's supposed to go even higher. Does the league frown upon people? I'm not saying you're moonlighting, because some of these foreign leagues, they pay more than the WNBA pays. And I know there was a couple situations where great American players decided to forego their WNBA season because they were afraid they were getting paid so much overseas. They didn't want it to interrupt what was going on there. So is the league trying to encourage folks not to do that anymore, or is exposure good for the league?
So the exposure is good for the league, but with the CBA, we've made significant progress in salaries, in player compensation outside of your salary, just with marketing dollars, sponsorship, and things like this. Group licensing, which is what we have with our Players Association, things like that for us to have, more income. Player experience is also something that was a huge emphasis as far as getting your own rooms, maternity benefits, all these things. So the CBA is great, but it's just a starting point, because many of us still get, respectable incomes from overseas, but the overlap is the issue. So I don't think, the WNBA's, their responsibility is to protect their players. You play year round, that's, more on your body. That's, you've seen players like a Brianna Stewart tear their Achilles overseas, Alyssa Thomas tore her Achilles overseas. That's my teammate here in Connecticut. It's a huge demand on our bodies. So while they don't encourage us to not play, There's little things that get implemented, such as fines for being late when you're coming back from overseas, or a team's right to suspend if they want, which if you get suspended, you don't get paid. So it doesn't waste your season. Like, you still have the season, but that's money that they get to keep for the salary cap. So, there's all these, kind of things that get put in there that would make you not want to play if you don't want to have those sanctions, So they kind of try to force the hand. And as the years go on in the CBA, the sanctions become more. So there's an incentive with the higher salary and the marketing dollars to not play overseas. That's an option you have. You can be compensated for not playing, but it's still not going to be at the same amount as if you were to play.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Well, how about overseas? I saw that you played in Russia and Poland and Turkey, and those are higher paying leagues. But that kind of surprises me, because you think of those cultures are more macho than our cultures. You'd actually think it'd be the other way around, that the women would make more here and they had more interest here. But why is it that they get paid more overseas? Is it they have better sponsorships for their team?
Yeah, I think it's just sponsorship. Like, for instance, I just recently played for and signed back to play for Fenerbahce, which is a really good club in Istanbul. And
Great
it's
soccer team too.
Exactly. So, but that's the thing. So the money in sponsorship, even though we had our own sponsorships just for our team, but it comes, soccer is the main, and then there's men's basketball, there's volleyball, there's women's basketball. So it's a full organization of sponsorships secured to pay these salaries. And sometimes on certain teams I've been on, like, a specific sponsor is paying my salary specifically, it's just the business is run a lot differently, especially per organization. Like, the resources and how it's spread out is just so different. For the WNBA, it's like, just in America in general, it's run, we have, benefits. You directly pay taxes from my salary. How it is overseas is like the team pays taxes for my salary, but I'm not paying taxes in that country. I think France is the only place that I've heard of where the actual players are responsible for paying the taxes from their salary. I, in return, pay taxes on my salary in the States, which sucks, of course, but it's part of it. If you don't want to, the IRS hounding you got to do it. And I just think, the way that they'd set up things through sponsorship is how they're allowed to pay more. And there isn't anything binding them that I know of to pay everyone the same. We have this salary cap system, which means this is the max we can pay. This is how it's divvied up, but you're guaranteed to be paid bi-weekly. Like, things can be late overseas. Sometimes you get on a team where they don't pay you for 2 months, but you're going to get your money. It's a real different business. That's a whole huge topic that can be dissected. But yeah, it works. You get used to it. It's frustrating sometimes because they don't have the laws that, that help you to enforce being paid on time or paid consistently. So you run into some other things over there for sure.
Yes. What countries have you enjoyed the most as a player?
So I really love Turkey. I played 3 seasons there, 2 in Ankara, the capital, 1 in Istanbul. I love the food. I just I'm comfortable in Turkey. Israel was also a comfortable place, just as far as, everyone spoke English. It wasn't much of an adjustment. The good weather, small place, it was comfortable to play. Those are probably my favorite. And then Russia was the hardest. I was just in a city that was 9 hours north of Moscow. So we were also in Euro Cup, which means we played Russian league. And then we traveled outside of Russia to play against other teams. And we always had to take a 9-hour train to Moscow before we could fly anywhere else. So the travel was just really hard in Russia, the food, the weather. But everywhere else I enjoyed. Poland was good. I did a like little short Arab Championship tournament in Jordan, and the tournament was in Morocco. So that was pretty cool because I had never been to Africa, so I was like able to do that. Yeah.
Is the racism and sexism the same generally everywhere, or did you find it different over there, especially in the Eastern European countries?
Um, the same, no. I would say like sexism probably, yes, it exists like pretty consistently everywhere. Women, making less money, being respected less, having less opportunities, like all of those are pretty consistent. But racism, it's just different because it's based off of the history, like the racist history we experience in America is based off of like the American history of racism, while colorism exists more in other places. Like they do treat people, differently based off of the color of their skin and the darker that they are, but it
That's
doesn't have
interesting.
you know, that slave root.
Exactly. Yeah, I haven't thought of it that way. Well, so to come back to America in the WNBA, you ended up settling at the Connecticut Sun, which I think it seemed like it'd be a great place to play women's basketball because they have such a great culture in women's basketball. Is that true?
For sure.
Yeah.
The fans here, they're extremely knowledgeable. They have UConn, which is, where they get their basketball knowledge and fan base from. And they love what the fact that we're back in Mohegan playing here is just the best thing because they've missed us and we've missed them. The bubble was hard last year, just being away from our arena. And like, even now we're undefeated at home. It's a great place to play for sure. And it makes a difference when the fans actually understand the game. It's not just wins and losses. They understand good losses. They understand what's happening with the team and the chemistry and the business moves. They get it. So it's good.
Do you think, are you pretty optimistic on your team's chances this year?
I am. We've lost we have 2 overtime losses, both of which were great learning experiences for us early on in the season. We're still sitting at first place with 7-2. So we are off to a good start, especially in a year with an Olympic break, and there's going to be that 1 month pause. The better record you can have going into that break, the better, because after taking a month off, no matter how well or how poorly you're playing, it's always, a little messy to take a break and everyone goes and does their own thing. And then you all come back and just jump right back into the season like normal. There's going to be a little bit of a rust and drop off to start back up. So we're on good pace.
Yeah, that's great. So over the years in your experience in the WNBA, who are some of the couple of the toughest players that you've had to play against? Maybe they're tough matchups for you, or they're just really great players.
One of the toughest was actually like Cappie Pondexter. I feel like she was like my welcome to the WNBA moment. I was really young. My first 2 years in the league stand out to me being in DC, and they were like, well, that's your matchup. And I'm like, oh, okay, like, uh-oh. Like, I am a defender. I do love playing defense, but that adjustment that you feel when you first get into the league, the speed, the talent, the skill, the physicalness, I'm like, this will be an experience, this game. But yeah, so she was definitely tough to guard. Diana Taurasi's tough to guard. She plays the point. So, she's taller than most of us. So that length, plus she's an incredible shooter. She's super physical and, she's a good passer. So, it's definitely a lot on a defender to have to try to slow her down. Who else? I don't know. I feel like those stand out the most to me from my matchup. Like from a team standpoint, like Tamika Catchings was always hard for us to like shut down as a team. That just didn't happen ever, no matter how much we tried. She's one of my favorite players ever.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dad was awesome too. Yeah. So I would think the adjustment for WNBA would be enormous compared to the ACC, even though the ACC is a great college league. How long did it take you to feel comfortable? Like, I got this, I could do this.
If I'm being honest, I feel like it took me about 5 years. Like
Wow.
Yeah, it just felt like, so I did 2 years in DC, 2 years in Atlanta. By the time I got to Connecticut, that was in my 5th season. That's when I started to feel just more confident. And I think that's a nature of mentally being traded. It's like, it takes a mental toll on you. I had a coaching change every time there was a trade. So it's a little bit of out of your control. And then it's a little bit of like questioning your own value. Like, this person didn't see me as, significant, or didn't see a value in me to keep me on their team. And, you just deal with that. You deal with, what each organization or what the media or what whoever has to say about your game, and whether you will be or can be successful or not. So it's kind of just, finding that system of working on your game, getting better, using overseas to my advantage, like those things that I was challenged to be better at, going overseas and just doing them and finding my confidence again over there. But then it also takes being in the right place. A right fit is, you can't underestimate how important that is. And once I got to Connecticut, I was able to, kind of go back to enjoying the game, loving the game, playing it for the reasons that I started and that I enjoy. And I was really given a role where I could feel valuable. And once you feel that security, you play better. So it took me a good little while. I'm in this is my 11th season now, though. So
wow, I had no idea. It just seems like yesterday.
Yeah. It's harder though. The women, we don't have that developmental time. So I feel like on average, it takes people about 3 years in the W to really like start to feel like, all right, it's routine. I got this. I feel comfortable. I feel confident. Because you literally come out of April. If you go into the NCAA tournament, it ends in April, or, and then the draft is right away. You have zero time to develop as a pro. You develop as you play. And that is not the best design, but it works. We're making it work.
Yeah. With such few jobs that are available every year, I would think, without knowing, that people wouldn't be exceptionally nice. I would think it'd be extremely competitive, extremely cutthroat. Without knowing, I'm sure everyone wants to be friendly. Hopefully, I'm wrong. What is the movie? What are the relationships around the league?
It's definitely competitive, but it's respectfully competitive. Every player is different. I can't say that everyone is like that, but generally, I think something that we care about the game so much that it's competitive, and that you're going to fight for your spot. You're going to assert yourself. You're going to, show that you deserve to be on a team. But it's also there's like an understanding that people that are in training camp, no matter if it's just a training camp contract where, that your chances of being on a team from a business standpoint are small, we're teaching each other, we're learning from each other. We want people to have opportunities. If it's not going to be in Connecticut, for instance, we want you to leave here with some skills, with some knowledge, with some confidence, that if another team picks you up or you get in another camp, like you feel like you could be prepared to, contribute. And I think that's just because we want the product to be good. We want people to have opportunities. We can't control when there will be an expansion. It's definitely obvious that there needs to be, if not more spots per roster, more teams. Like there has to be an expansion at some point. And that's because you see, good veterans being on the, people having to decide whether keep good veterans with experience or, give some chance to these, great young players coming into the league, and there's not enough opportunities for them. So it's really hard. It's definitely cutthroat and competitive, but like I said, it's respectful. Like we still want everyone to be successful in some way.
Do you think if they could double the money, the salaries, and make it a winter league, like basketball is traditionally a winter sport, would you think it'd be good for the game? For example, my mother, she loves having WNBA in the summertime. She can really focus on that. After the NBA is over, right? She looks forward to it. She loves it. And for you, for example, you can see the world and you can work overseas if you like. But do you think, on the other hand, it could be better if they can somehow financially make it work so it's a winter sport?
I used to think that. I used to think like basketball is a winter sport. That is when we've played our whole lives. It's not until we become pros that we start playing primarily in the summer. That summer used to just be the AAU circuit or the, in
Pick up.
college. It's where you
Yeah.
work on your body. It's where you work on your game. It's where you're trying to get better. So I used to think that, okay, if we played during the traditional basketball season, maybe it'd be better. People would pay attention to us because basketball time. But then you think about all the other sports. You think about the NBA. You think about sharing the TV time, sharing the marketing, sharing with other events and venue space and all these other complications that come into play. There isn't a problem with having the WNBA in the summer. It works, but at a time when people are traveling, they're doing family things, they're wanting to be outside and not indoors, the challenge is just investment and marketing. I think that would ultimately grow everything. It'll grow the salaries, it'll grow the exposure, it'll grow the league. The more we put into it, the more other people are willing to invest in us, other companies, other businesses, and that's where we are right now. The excitement around the this 25th season is beyond anything that I've felt in my 11 years. From social, like you get on Instagram, you can get on the Explore page, you get on Twitter, and somebody is talking about the WNBA in some way. The new energy around the jerseys, you know, every team has 3 jerseys now. I think it's like the Explorer, Hero, and I don't know, it's one other Explorer, whatever. Every team has 3 different jerseys, and they look really cool, but they also tell a story. We're starting to share more about each market and about players and about more players than just the ones that people are used to seeing all the time. So I think we're headed in the right direction for sure. But you always got to compromise somewhere. They always want the women to compromise. You want more money? Okay, we can't have more teams just yet. We can't have more spots just yet. It's like, you wish it could all be done at the same time, but it's happening in steps.
One thing I think WNBA did that was pretty smart. And I've always advocated for like women's soccer or sports to do like the European model. Like you were talking about Fenerbahce before. Fenerbahce has this great brand, and they have many different teams. One of our legendary players, Betsy Bailey, was a coach at Fenerbahce back in the 70s. She played at Marshall back in the 70s. She was like the first women coach in Europe professional.
That's
but
so
like,
cool.
I'll connect you guys. Oh my God, I think it was Fenerbahce's rival. It wasn't Fenerbahce, it was the other
Gala,
one.
Galatasaray.
Yes, it was. It was Galatasaray. Yeah. Sorry about that. But
It's okay.
she's still definitely worth meeting. But like in women's soccer, Lyon is greatest women's soccer team in the world, and it's connected to one of the men's soccer teams, Lyon. Well, I think the WNBA tried a little bit of that, like the Mystics and the Wizards. The Wizards have the same ownership and the same colors. They try that. I think Connecticut's kind of different because you guys don't quite have that, but you guys have great. You have the you have the native people and all that stuff. So you have an interesting story. Do you think women's sports should be tied towards the brand that's already developed, or do you like the way it is now? It's kind of a tough question.
It is a tough question, but it's something that I've thought about. So when I started in DC and being connected to the Wizards, having access to those resources seemed cool. Like, we're connected to the NBA team because the brand of the NBA is so well known. It's so well respected. There's a lot of energy around it. So it seems cool. But when you think about what always happens with women is, we're part of them. We don't get to have this thing that is our own, where we can tell our own stories, where we can be our own brand. It's always going to be overshadowed by the NBA, those players and what they're doing. So the direction that the WNBA has been going in is, while we appreciate and respect everything that we get from the NBA and all of their, they're starting to promote us more and, really genuinely follow our game. We have to brand ourselves as something separate because we are different. The model of the business is different for us right now. And I think we're having more success now that we're starting to brand ourselves as separate. And I think it's more empowering. If I'm being honest, we have more control over what we want to show, what we want to, tell. And even when you think about all we've done this past year with like social justice and really being on the forefront of, being outspoken and standing for, the families of like Breonna Taylor. And I think we're making a bigger impact being separate instead of being under the shadow of the NBA. So
That's awesome. So, last question. You give me way too much time. This has been great. But do you think you'll stay in basketball when your playing days are over? Or, I mean, you're a Duke grad. You're very smart. You could probably work on TV. You could probably do whatever you want to do. But do you think basketball will still have a role in your life?
I think so. I definitely want to be involved with sports, and basketball is where my passion is. So I would love to, whether it's for the WNBA, for the NBA, I kind of think I want to do something in like the player development aspect off the court. I just want to be more in front office and on the business side of things. And I would try to coach, I feel like it's something that I think I could be really good at, but I don't want to do something if I'm not committed to it just because it comes naturally. So I think I have to give it a chance, maybe to just see if it's something I could fall in love with, but I don't think along the lines of coaching. I think more front office.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, yeah. Well, I look forward to keeping up with you, this season and beyond, because I know you're going to do a lot more great things, and you have a lot of great ideas about the WNBA, and it's empowering to hear players talk about their league as us. I think when you hear NBA players interviewed, they don't embrace it like they are decision makers so much. I mean, I guess unless you're like a LeBron James, but it's interesting the way you talk about the NBA. You're in this with them. It's not like it's them and they're the employer. You seem to talk about it like it's part of your family, and you want to make this thing successful for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I am a player rep in our Players Association and our union. And I think since being in that role, I've just learned more about the operations of our league, and just how much power we have, until you are involved in some of those conversations and you see some of that, back and forth, you do feel like you don't have control. Just whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But, it's our league. And the more that we demand what we deserve and that we take it, we become involved actively in what's going on with the league, the more we'll be happy with the product. And yeah, I really enjoy being a player rep. I encourage a lot of young players to get involved as soon as they can, just because they are the future of the league. So the younger that you start to get involved with these things, the more you can affect the experience in the future.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Jasmine, look, thanks a lot for taking all this time to talk to us. This has been great. I can't wait to again follow your season. I hope you guys can bring home the hardware, and hopefully we can, hopefully we can keep in touch. Maybe even talk again at some point.
Yeah, for sure. We absolutely can. Thank you so much for including me and having me on here. This was great.
Oh, that's awesome, Jasmine. Okay, well, look, we'll have the rest of the day. Enjoy your week off for once.
Thank you. I will try. I need sleep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again.
Right. Take care. Yep.
Bye-bye. You're welcome. Bye-bye.